Manziel attempts to strong-arm the Heisman Committee, while the Big 10 and SEC attempt to strong-arm the CFP. Grab a drink and join us on tonight's Tailgate. Well, thank you for joining us on tonight's Tailgate. As always, I'm Luke, and I'm joined here with Dennis.
That would be me.
And Michael.
Hey, that's me. Man, we've been having a good time. We're still cracking up about that joke that he made. I mean, the thing that he made, the comment he made in the last episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're hopefully no one was offended by it, but if you were, then
Here's his address.
I was just going to say I don't care.
I've got kids. Please be gentle.
I don't.
Gentle.
I'm just saying, like, if you're going to throw a rock through my window, make sure it has, like, a T-shirt wrapped around it so it doesn't hit him as hard.
Yeah, so make sure it's at least like Michigan.
Soften the blow.
Right.
If it's T-shirt, make sure it's like Michigan gear.
Just put a
'Cause it's
big old
soft.
Michigan sticker
Soft,
on his car.
just like their fan
Or
base.
send him some Michigan, like stuff to wear. Like he gets cold. He has no hair to keep him warm.
I guess I can't really say that Michigan's fan base is soft when I'm part of Vol Twitter, which is way softer.
Yeah.
Man,
Well, Twitter is just like,
you guys need to calm down.
I'm
scary.
sorry if you guys are soft. It sucks.
I mean,
no, they're like chihuahuas.
it is exactly what it's like. Oh my gosh, I hate it. It's so bad.
All Twitter is chihuahuas. It's like
Yeah.
you go in there and you're like, hey, I'm an Ohio State fan. How y'all doing?
Yeah, it's some of the most vitriolic Twitter nonsense I've ever seen. So you all need
Anyway.
to just need to do better.
Speaking of vitriol.
Vitriolic things to say. Yeah. What's Manziel talking to the Heisman committee about? Okay, let's be real though. He's saying something that we all agree with. I'm pretty sure we all would agree with that. Like that
Yeah,
sentiment.
100%.
And I believe that he genuinely believes he's saying that for the right intentions.
I hope so, because there's some things that he did comment that I do believe is kind of right. I feel like Reggie Bush is one of those players where if you think Heisman, he's kind of the epitome of that, like the kind of player that he was.
I mean, I would think Archie Griffin, who's won it twice, but
Can you remember any of his plays?
yes, there was one time he ran to the right.
I feel like he did that a couple hundred times,
Right.
so you have a pretty good chance.
Very well. No, like so Johnny Football's comments here. After careful thought and
It's
consideration.
Johnny Football. It's just one. It's not plural.
Oh, did I say football?
Footballs.
I can't say anything right. Okay, Johnny Manziel. So his quote is, after careful thought and consideration, I will be humbly removing myself from the Heisman Trophy ceremony until Reggie Bush gets his trophy back. Doesn't sit right with my morals and values that he can't be on that stage with us every year. Reggie is the Heisman Trophy. Do the right thing, NCAA. The ball is in your court. So I will say that I have always been kind of the person who says it was a rule then. You broke the rule then. You got your then. And that shouldn't be retroactively fixed.
Sure.
It shouldn't be like, oh, well, now that the rules are different, it's not as big of a deal that you broke that rule. So yeah, we'll give you. The other side of that is, if I wake up tomorrow morning and I roll out of bed and I look at my phone and it says, the Heisman Committee decides to give Reggie Bush his Heisman back, I'm gonna go, okay.
Yeah.
Like it's not that big of a deal.
No, I mean, I understand that. To me, it's one of those things where, like, if it had nothing to do with what was on the field and it actually did not, like, improve his performance, like, it's not like he had, like, a free training session at, like, Equinox or, like, a private
Or he was doing steroids.
It's not like he knew the plays of the other team.
it's not like, and they wouldn't understand it that way. No, like, they had their own
He didn't
players.
scout
like,
ahead.
Like, so I feel like in terms of, like, what he was able to do on the field as, like, an individual, like, I feel like he should get it off that. He shouldn't be judged on what you do off the field.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, and
the Heisman Trophy is about what you do with how you play, right?
there is zero doubt in my mind that year Reggie Bush was the best college football player in the country.
Like, he was like his entire time he was exciting to watch.
However, had he been caught doing what if what had happened had been caught earlier, he would have been ineligible to play, and he would have been in none of those games. So he would not have been the best college player that year. The same way, and again, obviously Ohio State guy, the same way Ohio State had to forfeit a whole year because players were playing because they were ineligible based on things that they had done off the field.
So let me ask you this then: for players that weren't caught at the time of like them being in college with the Heisman, or even like within the recent years where Reggie Bush got all that happened, the players that were taking money, say in the mid 2000s and even 90s and 80s, since they've openly admitted, yeah, I was taking money, I was taking cuts. Should the people like those award winners should they like
should they should they? If you're going by the rules, yes.
So it's like what's stopping that?
So no, I'm just saying, like, at the end of the day, I'm a big the rules are the rules guy. You know, that's the rules are the rules, and if you break the rules of your time, then you shouldn't be allowed to have the award you were.
And I would 100% agree with that. But if you're letting the other players still be able to keep their awards, then you should be able to give it back to Reggie Bush too.
And I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Now, with what Johnny's doing, to get off the subject of whether or not he should have that, with what Johnny's saying is, I struggle because I think that he is definitely. I don't think that he is. I don't think that he that he doesn't believe this. But the thing is I hadn't heard much about him until he said this in an interview. And the other part of this is of all the people in the Heisman house, if Eddie George or Desmond Howard or Derrick Henry or who else, any other Heisman player, who
I mean, it doesn't even have to be limited to running backs. I mean, any other quarterback or anything like that.
Right. Anybody had come out and said this, I think that you get a lot more traction and you get a lot more, okay, well, there's some big-time names coming out here. When Johnny Manziel says it, you just kind of go,
He doesn't have the best track record of what he was doing. Like, he literally got kicked out of the NFL because he could not be just, morally conscious about showing up on time or even respecting his teammates.
Sure.
So, no, I agree with you 100%. And what I do hate, like, in a lot of the articles that he says, like, hey, Manziel is doing this, he's saying, like, hey, yeah, a lot of the other people in the Heisman, like in the Heisman house have discussed this. I'm like, cool. Why don't you at least bring 3 of them, 4 of them, 5 of them, and have them be able to say something? Like, just to kind of go on with what you're saying.
Right.
Like, if you tell me Tebow's there, I don't know if I would believe it. Like, he was teammates with, like, Aaron Hernandez. But
he hadn't murdered anybody at that point.
That we know.
That we know of, yeah. Those bodies are well hidden.
Like, there'll be players that'll be like, okay, like, they do have a strong voice. Like, you can't ignore some of these players' success and how great they were. And they were not just only in that season, but probably to the game as a whole.
Sure. And not taking anything away from him. Like, I agree with the sentiment. I honestly think his heart and his mind are in the right place. I just think that there could be
hopefully it's for the right reason.
Hopefully it's for the right reason, and I think that there could be better players to voice this.
Exactly. It just unfortunately feels like posturing. Like he just is posturing to, again. I agree with you. I don't think that his heart is there. I don't think his heart is deliberately just trying to posture for publicity's sake or whatnot. But because I feel like he's been humbled a lot over the past few years. But it's one of those things that it's hard for people not to see it that way. Like, and you have to understand when you've kind of become known as, someone that didn't really take the job seriously and just, you were super talented but threw all your talent away, and never lived up to your actual potential, that you're not going to be taken seriously until you actually do serious things. And this is your way of saying I'm doing serious things now by using my potential, my actual stature, because I am a Heisman winner, like, to stand up for what I think is right. Great. That's awesome. Remove yourself from that equation. Like, don't make it about yourself, because that's what you're doing. You're making it about yourself,
Yep.
While trying to also make it about Reggie. So, it's just one of those things. Like,
and I hope it would be really cool to see in the coming days, weeks, months, whatever, some other
absolutely,
some other Heisman guys get behind this, and I think that's what's really going to prove whether or not there are a whole bunch of guys that are on the same boat or on the same page or thinking that should happen.
Yeah,
So,
especially if if Manziel is one of the people that's helping propel these other guys to do it. Like, hey, you know what? Here, you guys needed somebody just to break the dam. Like, hey, we got to rush it. And so
And we know Derrick Henry can break through that.
True, but he might be standing still because he still is an active player. Like,
True.
he might be like, you know what? I don't really want to touch that. And
he's a free agent this summer, so
so
he's probably like, let me stay away from the limelight a little bit so I can still get that check.
If you get 10 other players jumping up there and going, you know what, we're not going to be able to participate in either. Derrick Henry jumping up there and saying it's just like, it might seem like he's bandwagoning to some degree. He kind of is, but he's adding his weight to the argument. So he's not completely bandwagoning. So it's just, it's one of those things like he's just strengthening their position. Yep. And so if Manziel is literally going around to these other Heisman winners and going, hey, you guys need to back me up. If you believe that this is true, if you believe that I'm right, back me up.
One thing I am surprised, though, Reggie Bush's own teammate, Matt Leinart, I feel like would have been a perfect time to be, hey, say something.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you played with him, I think 3 of the 4 years. So why aren't you saying something here? I feel like
I don't know.
And
maybe it's coming. Maybe
maybe
we're going to see a big revolt, and there's not going to be any more Heisman House commercials.
I still actually like those commercials.
From Nissan? Dang it. I want more Nissan commercials. I love commercials now, guys.
It's the only thing that actually runs for them.
That's true. It's true. It's so sad.
Yep. But then, I guess we can move on to
the
other
SEC
and the Big Ten.
The other posturing that happened this past week. So obviously, as we know, the SEC and the Big Ten have been talking. They've been talking in cahoots about an alliance or an allegiance. Just in case things went south with the NCAA, they can kind of, monitor themselves, break off, do their own thing, which would be interesting. In college football, would be. I think it would make for a less fun college football season. But it would still be exciting because you'd have the best teams playing against each other all the time.
Right.
There's a few teams in the Big Ten and SEC that shouldn't even be there.
Right.
I don't know if they should be in D1, but
we'll trade Rutgers for Clemson or something. I don't know.
I feel like Rutgers actually been pretty good they were this past year.
Yeah,
okay.
Iowa.
Vanderbilt.
I think everybody. I think even Vanderbilt would agree with you on that.
Right.
No, they won it. No, they won it.
Just give us our SEC buyout.
They want it. They will want the stipend. Mm-hmm. They'll want the SEC money for the rest of however long they're at the school,
which might be worth it.
Maybe.
But anyway,
anywho, Vanderbilt just needs to go to the Ivy Leagues. That'd be funny.
But we have not even played a 12-team playoff.
Nope.
And we're already
they're already trying to set the rule for 2026.
They're already trying to get that 14 team. They're already trying to move it up.
They're like, you know what? You know would be better than 12 teams? 14 teams.
What I don't like about the 14 teams thing, don't get me wrong, I actually wouldn't mind that many kind of playoffs going into the situation, but I don't like the fact that the Big Ten and the SEC is trying to be like, hey, we are allowed 4 teams on each of our sides.
Well, it's 2 automatic bids on each team.
Well, they're trying to make the I've seen different articles say hey, we need at least 3 or 4 as automatic bids. I've seen 4 as being the most common one, though.
I've seen and I've heard them talking about going to it with them saying 4 Big Ten teams, 4 SEC teams, and that's kind of what Big Ten is, or what they are bringing to the table. We get 4, they get 4, so that's 8 teams, and then you've got 6 other teams that are.
So don't get me wrong, it makes sense, and don't get me wrong. I feel like 4 teams on the Big Ten, especially with the new teams kind of going into the conference. They do have 4 teams that can probably at any given year probably win the national championship on their own. SEC, I feel like, are definitely becoming a more even platform in the past couple of years, especially now I feel like with Saban gone, there might be a little bit more leveled ground. But I still don't believe hey, your best 4 versus and our best 4 versus the entire rest of the.
Right.
And that's still a maybe. They could still get additional Big Ten and SEC players, or not players, but teams in those 6. I think like 2, 3, probably more total. So I'm just not a big fan of that.
I mean, personally, I just feel like we need to go to 32-team playoff. March Madness, guys. Let's do it.
Let's do
and play more than the pros play.
Yeah, why not?
No, and I definitely think like obviously, what they're doing.
64 teams. Let's do
64. You know what? Just it's
let's bring in some D2 teams, D3 teams.
There's no regular season. We just start every year off. We're going to play a couple preseason games and
September
then we're just
Madness.
Wasn't that like early 2000 when every single game mattered?
Yeah. But no, I think when you look at it, like obviously the Big Ten and the SEC, they're looking out for themselves and kind of looking out for each other now. I feel like they're kind of having this,
they're
like,
both super conferences.
It's like Dwight
basically.
and Jim going, "You want to form an alliance?"
Yeah.
Like
they've really
fans,
always been best friends,
right?
Yeah.
Office fans, you'll know what I'm talking about. But they're going in with 4, knowing that everybody is going to go, "No, you're not going to get 4," but maybe they'll get 3. I don't know. But at the end of the day, you're going to look at this and go, 14 teams. If you think about the top 14 teams right now, you're probably looking at least 3 or 4 Big Ten teams, at least, and at least 3 or 4 SEC teams.
Yeah, that's why I don't like the 4 automatic bids.
Yeah,
like 3, I feel like would still be. I feel like it's actually would be. I'd be okay with that.
Yep, I am a big proponent of obviously automatic conference bids. You win your conference, you get in, and I think that's through. Like I think every conference should get an automatic bid.
Yeah, regardless. Like I get it. There's gonna be teams that are gonna get their butt whooped.
Yes,
but like I feel like, hey, you only had 1 loss this year, but
if you're trying to make it like the NCAA basketball tournament where you've got those Cinderella stories. I mean, that's what everybody loves.
Yeah,
is
the out of nowhere team.
Out of nowhere, this team just went to the Sweet 16 and like nobody knows who they are. If you're looking for that, then you need those teams in.
Yeah.
So a conference bid.
So should Appalachian State then just get an automatic bid every single year?
Pretty much,
like regardless, hey, you guys are 6-6. Hey, just cool, just go.
You always upset somebody. Yeah, just come on in. But no, I think every conference, and then from that point, like those are your teams, and then after that, you go to your 12 or your 14, and then you've got your next, whatever those numbers are, wherever you're ranked, that's where you go. And then Notre Dame, join a conference. Join a conference.
Yeah, I mean they should automatically never be allowed to play for a college football playoff until they join a conference.
The thing is too, this would actually hurt them a lot if they're not at an actual conference.
Oh yeah, well it does because they can't win a conference championship. But like I just think if you're not willing to play in a conference, then you're not willing to put your money where your mouth is.
Mm-hmm. Especially if you're not like the other schools that are independent. Where like hey, like Navy, Army, like it makes sense why they're independent. But Notre Dame is like, what's your reason?
Well, it's like, I think you can look at it 2 different ways. You can look at it as it hurts them because they won't get an automatic bid because they don't get that automatic bid, and I think they now because they don't have a conference they cannot be any higher than 5. Yep. So they will never get a bye, and essentially you go okay, that kind of hurts them because they never get that bye. However, they don't play a conference championship game.
Correct.
So that game there as a 5th seed or whatever seed they would be essentially their conference championship game.
That would be their
bye. So they're getting the money from that game as if they're conference championship, but they're in the playoffs. So they kind of double dip a little bit in that scenario.
Well, and they also have weird pool in the ACC as well. Like so they have weird
that relationship with them.
I want to say it was Clemson and FSU this past year that basically told Notre Dame to just shut it. Like when they were, because Notre Dame was like, hey, we got to bring on Stanford and Cal. Like, come on.
It's like, cool. You're not even here, so why do you have a voice?
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
and so I think if the ACC is going to be kind of like almost like a sister conference to Notre Dame, they ACC needs to just stand up and go, you know what, you can either be a part of our conference or you have no say anywhere.
Like Notre Dame, like just hey, you don't like it, cool. Then you already know what to do. Like take it or leave it.
Yeah.
So, but this is one of the things where I feel like Notre Dame is still gonna get in because for some reason they haven't won a game I think since like the 80s, and like people are still like, hey, we're really big fans. We're dominating like the networks. It's like, no, like
I mean, they are a big, they are
Huge brand.
Huge brand.
Yeah, don't get
they're a
me wrong.
money school, and that's where they will never. You're never gonna see them not have some of those games against Ohio State or Clemson or your FSU because there's too much money to be had. However, really, what the conferences need to do, what these teams need to do, is just go. Yeah, we're not scheduling you until you're in a conference. Like you can.
Rudy
go
made
play.
Notre Dame too big, man.
You mean Samwise Gamgee?
No,
Sean Austin. Was it Sean Austin?
I think so.
Yeah.
Sean Aston.
Aston Martin. Sean Aston Martin.
I don't know. Sean Austin. I don't know.
I feel like you
Either
said
way.
it with an accent.
But yeah, so I think it's really interesting that the SEC, like, it's funny to see the past 20 years how SEC and Big Ten have always been kind of butting heads, and it's always been, oh, well, we're better at this, and you're this is your year, but next year we'll get you, and whatever it may be. They've always hated each other, and then all of a sudden, all it took was them to be like, hey, we might just have more power than the NCAA if we team up.
I mean, they have some of the biggest brands in those two conferences. So I feel like
Well, especially now that like USC and UCLA
Yeah.
and Oregon and Texas.
like if anybody's gonna be like, hey, these are the teams that are gonna win it, Big Ten and SEC, not just because now they're where the conferences are at, it's just like they have those big name, big brand schools, and 18 schools in Big Ten, 16 schools in SEC. Why is it still called the Big 10? It should be the Big 18 now. At this point, it's just Big 20. But like, there's 34 teams there, with the exception of maybe 5 or 6 teams. Almost any of those teams could be able to make it to the Natty.
Yeah, year to year there could be a bunch of them.
Yeah,
Instead of calling it the Big 18, I'm going to petition that they call it the Big Old Conference now.
big old conference.
The Big Old Conference.
The Bach.
Yeah, the Big Old
I
Conference.
said just call it the North, like basically.
Big Old Conference.
Well, we got the West too.
I mean,
and the
okay.
East.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I mean, if we get like FSU or Miami, we could have some.
You
South.
could call it From Sea to Shining Sea Conference.
The manifestation.
The Manifest Destiny Conference.
Just the C2C conference.
The C2C
I feel like it became like an
Conference.
Ivy League conference now suddenly.
Then Purple Mountain Majesties Conference.
Jesus.
No, that's the Mountain West Conference.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. That already exists.
At this point, why you guys haven't like asked for Appalachian State to be able to work with you guys? I'm just saying, that'd be a
Like work with us on the podcast.
no, no. I mean, like join the conferences.
App State. I mean, I feel like the App State's best chance to join a conference was when they beat Michigan.
I feel like they still can, to be
feel,
honest.
Yeah,
Like,
well, I feel like App State's most natural conference fit would be either the ACC or the SEC.
just their play style. Like,
Well,
kind of-
in location,
Yeah.
like it just
Yeah.
they're right next to the ACC headquarters. But then you've also got their play styles. You know that
I mean, I feel like they can go either way, but
that one could go either way. But I feel like the way that they play, just in general, as the way they play year in and year out, lends more to SEC, just because of the fact that they tend to be more of an upset team, whereas the ACC doesn't tend to upset anyone
Except themselves.
except for themselves. Sorry, FSU fans.
And Miami fans.
Well, you know,
I mean,
we haven't
Miami-
talked about them since 2001. So who
Miami
cares?
did lose a game this past year when all they had to do was kneel.
It's true.
So
yeah,
I mean,
they fumbled it.
you just beat yourself on that game. You
It's
know.
like if Joe Milton was a team, it would be Miami.
That's true. It's sad, but true.
Like you're good the first half, and you're just like, what happened?
What happened? What happened? Well, thanks for joining tonight's tailgate. Come back next time and join the conversation.